Hey everyone, welcome back. It's Lex, and today I am going to be reviewing I'll Give You the Sun by Jandy Nelson. So I just finished this book right before New Year's Eve, so it was, I believe, the 26th or the 27th, and it took me honestly forever to read it. So I've had this book for roughly, I believe, like a year, and I never read it because it didn't really interest me. My friend sent it to me. Most books I read are gay, LGBT, YA. So you would think that this would be right up my alley, but reading the synopsis in the back, it didn't really interest me. When I received this book was before I ever thought about reading like MLM type books. So I was kind of like iffy, and then I read like a whole bunch of them and just never touched this one. I don't know why. Maybe because like the whole main thing is the twins' relationship rather than their relationship with other people. But recently I didn't have any other books to read, so I saw this one that was on my bookshelf that I never read before, and I was like, sure, why not? I'll give it a shot. You know, quarantine, can't do anything, don't have any money to buy new books, so I'll read this one. First, I'm gonna have a short spoiler-free review, and then I'm gonna skip to a spoiler-filled review, so make sure you pay attention, and I will have a warning as well, so that way you know if you don't want to be spoiled. I'll Give You the Sun is basically about twins who are inseparable, and as teenagers they get into this big fight and they have a lot of issues and end up enemies, basically. So the book just focuses on their journey, not only to find themselves, but also to find their way back to each other and rebuild their relationship. Given that summary, you would think it would be something pretty profound, but it's not. It's pretty basic. I would only read it in passing, really, if I was given a choice. The fact that I started reading this was only because it was literally the only book that I had left on my bookshelf that I had not read. Of course, now I have a lot more, so I'll definitely be reading more books and doing more reviews in the future. So it goes between Noah's point of view at 13 and 14, which is when the pivotal moment of what breaks the twins apart happens, and Jude's point of view at 16, when the twins are trying to find their way back to each other. There's a lot of anger in this book, a lot of hatred towards each other, towards the people around them. I wasn't a fan of that. I did not like that. I feel like that's too much anger and hatred. I liked the beginning. It started out really well. I liked Noah's point of view when he was younger, and I didn't like Jude at 13. She was kind of a bitch. And then at 16, Noah's kind of an asshole. So it evens out. Overall, the book was pretty slow. I'm actually shook. It took me only 2 months to read it. Don't judge me for saying that because I'm a really slow reader. It did have a lot of good parts where some chapters I couldn't put the book down, but for the most part I was just like, oh my god, when is this chapter gonna be over? And the chapters aren't just normal chapters. They're like, they go on for like 30 pages because it's not actually a chapter, it's a point of view. So it goes from Noah to Jude. So if Noah's point of view is like only 3 pages long, then Jude's could be like 30 and vice versa. Don't really like that, because if you're like, oh, I'm just gonna finish this chapter real quick, well, that real quick could turn into an hour easily. And then it catches up around the last 100 pages. It goes really fast, like everything is happening at once, which I didn't really like. There is romance in this book. There's one MLM. It's kind of a slow burn. And also there's another romance. Jude has a guy that she likes. I will tell you that for the most part of this book, I was very frustrated and I just wanted to hurry up and finish it. And it was boring for the most part. Like, in the beginning, it was like, okay, maybe this is a good book. But then I was like, oh my god. And then finally at the end, I was like, why is everything happening at once? Why is it all going so fast? Overall, it is a good book. It has a lot of good reviews I've noticed, which is very interesting. I didn't like it because it's really slow. The only reason I kept reading, honestly, was to figure out what happens with the twins. So it does have a good story in keeping your attention in that aspect. Like, oh, these twins, they got into a big fight and suddenly they're not as close as they used to be. Why? And how do they fix that? It's, I don't know. All in all, I give this book a 3 out of 5. 3 stars. I'm not going to give it 2 stars because it was pretty good for the most part. And I did like the storyline. it did keep my attention because I did want to know what happened with the twins and how they repair their relationship. If they repair their relationship, what happens in the end. You know, I did want to know. If it was too boring not to keep my attention, then I wouldn't have finished reading it, and I probably would have given it 1 or 2 stars. So it gets 3, because it wasn't profound, it wasn't amazing, but it was pretty decent. I would not recommend it to other people, but if you do want to read it, good luck. I hope you like it better than I did. Okay, so that concludes the spoiler-free review, and now from here forth is all its spoilers. So, I warned you. Okay, so upon editing, I realized that I say unrealistic a lot about this book, when really I mean just not believable, because it's a fiction book. Obviously, it's not realistic fiction. It's not going to be realistic all the time, but it's just not very believable. So the story takes place in 2 different point of views and switches off per chapter. So it'll be Noah at 13 years old and then Jude at 16 years old. So that was a little confusing at first. So I'll get so wrapped up in like a Jude chapter that when it goes back to Noah's point of view, I'm like, oh, so that's what they were talking about. It's kind of confusing, kind of hard to keep track of. So the book started out pretty good in Noah's point of view. I really liked his storytelling and his side of the story. I felt like he was a lot more relatable. He's kind of more awkward and anxious and just an overall more relatable character to me, whereas Jude was kind of pretentious, kind of a bitch. I didn't like her at all. And one thing I didn't really like about the book itself was that the characters completely switched their personalities practically like overnight, it seems. So like the night that their mom dies, Jude experiences something as well, and so that causes her to change her whole personality. So instead of being like one of the popular girls who's all out there, super adventurous and daring, she's more closed off. She starts covering up more and just becomes kind of like a recluse and a loner. So then she becomes kind of the more relatable character. And then it's Noah that becomes the daredevil. So the fact that their personalities change so drastically is not very realistic to me. And the fact that Noah basically shoves his personality deep down inside him. Also, the book itself just goes by really slowly. It's hard to really keep my attention. Another thing I really didn't like was the fact that Noah started constantly lying about everything. So the fact that he lied to his dad about why his mom was on his way to go see him when she died, and lied to G about how his mom felt, and he lied to everybody about everything, and I can't stand liars. So the fact that like Noah, he was such a good character up until the point where he started lying and self-sabotaging every aspect of his life practically, where he was getting drunk all the time, jumping off cliffs. Also outing Brian was totally uncool. I understand that he was dealing with a lot of grief, a lot of hate towards himself, and so while the point of view is understandable, the actions are very questionable. And the fact that these twins are supposed to be so close, yet they self-sabotage each other. Well, not self-sabotage, but they sabotage each other with everything. So the fact that like when Noah threw away Jude's note to her mom for her to see her sculptures, when Jude threw away his application to CSA, when at the party that started everything on a downward spiral, when Jude took Brian to the closet. That's like sibling rivalry to the max. Like, I have siblings and even I wouldn't do anything like that to them. Like, that's just too much. There's too much hate. Like Noah hating his mom after what happened, hating G after what happened, hating himself, and then Jude hating herself, hating her mom. There's just too much hate, there's too much of it. I can't with that. Honestly, I think the Jude and Zafir storyline was pretty unnecessary. I understand that was a big moment in her life, but Zafir was pretty much a non-existent character aside from when he was bullying Noah and then when he and Jude had a fling. Completely unnecessary. I don't really think it had to be involved in the book at all. It could have just been in passing, but it wasn't. And then when Jude confronted Zephyr and was like, I was too young. And then suddenly she broke out of her shell and was this complete badass and a completely different person just with saying one thing. That is not realistic at all. And after that, it's like everything started moving super fast after that. And I was just like, what the fuck? Like, I could barely keep track of what was going on because there was so much happening in such a short span. It was just within like the last 100 pages. I just didn't like it. I just didn't really like it that much. And the romance between Jude and Oscar was really cute, but also completely unrealistic. The fact that Oscar felt like this player, this guy who can't settle down with any girl was like, oh my god, this is the girl. I just met this girl, but this is her. And then just like a few days later, then they're like practically in love. I'm sorry? You guys don't even know each other? You just met? And I understand that that's how most YA romances work. I've read a lot of YA books to know that. But there's usually more build-up. I don't feel like there was really much build-up with Oscar and Jude. They had like passing moments, but most of the moments between the two, it was mostly Jude that was kind of borderline obsessed with him. I did want to pop in and share one more thing. I did like the relationship between Noah and Brian. The only thing I didn't like is that Brian was so uncomfortable with his sexuality. Like, I'm tired of reading books about that, about sexuality and how it's like holding you back or how you're just not ready. And I understand like being only like 13, 14, 15 years old, that's very scary. But the fact that like Noah kind of outing Brian kind of led to his success, and he never reached out to Noah or anything. If he really liked Noah as much as he did, then you would have thought that he might reach out within that time, you know? I don't know. This is Jinx, by the way. Jinx paying us a visit. But besides the fact of Noah outing Brian, which was completely not okay, I did like their relationship. It was really cute, kind of like a will they won't they type of thing, because we didn't know if Brian was gay until he came back. I don't know, it was some vacation, some break from school. And then once it was confirmed, it was like, ooh, they're so cute. So that was cute. That was like the one good thing of the book. Honestly, that was like the only reason why I kept reading it, was because I really liked that dynamic. And then once I got to the part where Noah outed Brian, I was kind of in too deep to stop reading. I kind of wanted to find out what happened. So. Also, that like twist ending of G and their mom having an affair was super predictable. Like, as soon as G was introduced, I was kind of already like thinking about it a little bit. It was like in the back of my head. And then as G and Jude got closer, then I was like, given the history he has with their mom and also the notes that Jude was finding to Dearest, I was like, oh, I bet Dearest is her mom. Like, it was completely predictable. I'm not sure if that was the intention. If that was the intention, then good job. Perfect. But if not, overall, I think on Goodreads, I give this book either 3 or 4 stars, but I give it 3 stars. Definitely not one of my favorites. It's kind of just like a passing read. If you just want to fill up your time with a book, then I suggest this one. If you want to read something memorable, something that moves you, probably not this one. Thanks for watching this harsh review of I'll Give You the Sun. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to me, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye! Oh. I saw a ghost. There was a ghost. I saw it. I saw a ghost.